You saved me. I think you may have saved her after having a baby.
Well. Yes.
Like, and cracking up, you were the one who committed me to the mental hospital the first time. Like, I don't know if you got...
She saved me after I was.
Okay. Yes.
After birth, yeah. Twice. I got treatment for postpartum depression twice.
Yeah, and I was lucky I didn't have to the second time, and I did not want to go back to Dr. Clark, actually, because I was like, she's gonna lock me up. Her locking me up was, I found out about the support group, and she took one look, and she's like, you shouldn't go home.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but then I made a mistake. Like, I realized I made a mistake. I should have gone. And that she helped me through my second completely. And I didn't have any problems.
Yeah,
The
that's
meds
amazing.
were great. Also, like, group, like you guys, made me feel not bad about taking meds.
100%. Same. I'm on my third pregnancy, and this is the only one I've had meds on, and I felt so much more comfortable with it, having been through group twice with everyone.
You didn't go on meds your second. You were having a child in COVID.
Yeah, both times. Yeah.
And you, like,
both times went through.
Everybody needs that.
Yeah, I know. I went through two. I got off actually my antidepressants before having my first, with my doctor and therapist, and like worked on a progression for it to get off before going on, and then I got pregnant with my second so quickly back to back, and the plan had always been that we were going to have a couple, so I didn't want to be going on and off medication every time, so I was just kind of like white knuckling it through, which was a choice. I
like it as a choice.
This time I'm just on some doing some anxiety for nighttime anxiety, but like that's about it, thankfully. But even that I struggle with still, like being on a medicated pregnancy when I didn't have it before.
You know, and on that, I would say actually Dr. Clark's group made me feel better. Because, I mean, when some people were there with lists as long as their arm of medications, and you see their baby and it was healthy, and it's like, well, okay, I guess.
Do you want to talk about like how you started group, or?
So I want to first say it's interesting to be sitting here with the two of you in particular, because until right this second, I didn't really think about like you two in particular saying like I saved your life after delivering a baby.
Yes.
And like, you know, we learn all the statistics and we learn all the postpartum complications, and that maternal suicide is more common than postpartum hemorrhage, which in our world we see the postpartum hemorrhage right then and there when the baby comes.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's just like, I don't know how you found group. You just came in.
I did. I wasn't invited.
Oh my gosh, no way.
It literally, though, which they weren't supposed to do. The hospital, when I gave birth, there were like 4 people who just passed out a flyer. Gave me a flyer.
Interesting.
Which they're not supposed to do, I learned, because it's a med-controlled, like it's not just open to anyone.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because you were like, excuse me.
Yeah. And
Yeah, no. And I was like less than a week, and I still had a C-section, and I couldn't walk, I couldn't carry anything. And so my husband, actually, who was not allowed in group at all, came in carrying my stuff, because I was stupid. I didn't just leave it with the kid at home because I couldn't be separated. But I was so freaking out, and I didn't stop talking, and I was crying, and I was just overwhelmed.
Yeah, because it was still in person at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was not depressed. Like you say, postpartum depression. I mean, like I was kind of, but it was mostly energy, and I didn't have any desire to kill myself. None. I just was like, I'm falling apart, and I'm not doing everything right. This milk isn't working. I'm trying to get off it. I was going to white knuckle it like you did. Yeah. That was my decision, too. I was like, I don't need meds. And they're like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
And then the hospital was like, you're not going
to bipolar.
That was after I got the bipolar. It wasn't until after I gave birth. Yeah. And that was mania. But it also annoyed me because they told me that mania was enjoyable. that was not enjoyable at all.
I'm
Like,
sure.
I never felt this grandiose feeling. I was like, no, I'm failing as a mother and I just cannot sleep.
Oh.
You did not look like you were having
No, and
a great time.
Because they're like, you don't want meds because you enjoy this. I'm like, no.
Oh.
I'm going to white knuckle it. And that's why I guess I laughed when you said white knuckle, because I tried it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No.
I give you credit for doing it for 2 pregnancies.
The first was actually fine during the pregnancy.
Oh,
I had a
yeah.
great pregnancy. It was, I mean, other than the stress and anxiety that came along with it being COVID and all the unknowns and whatnot. But I was safe at home. We isolated. I was lucky to be able to work remotely. I had no issues in that regard. But yeah, it was literally 3.5 weeks after I gave birth, I was suicidal.
And that's common. Like,
Yeah.
No, like,
But yeah, I guess point being, like, the both of you had to do a lot to save yourselves, because I don't know how you found me.
So,
I was not involved with.
Oh,
Whitney
no.
was not in our system.
no, I was
Not
through
she was not a
Kaiser.
UC Davis
oh, wow.
patient.
How did you find?
So I had a really traumatic hospitalization at Kaiser, and they thought they had their own Zulresso program up and running, but due to COVID miscommunications and training, it hadn't happened. So they sent me from Roseville to Fairfield to get Zulresso, only to find out it wasn't available. So I'm like literally hospitalized, like waiting for this treatment that I'm now told I'm not going to get. And so I'm not going to go through all the details of like everything that happened to get to that point. But having found out about Zulresso, my mother-in-law, bless her, did a ton of research, found Dr. Clark, and was like, they're 30 minutes from your house. Like, maybe you can just get with her directly. And so we just called the clinic and told them our story and asked for a referral and got in and had a consultation with Dr. Clark. And she read all my medical records from Kaiser and was horrified.
And my face looks like this because it still took 18 days.
Yeah.
Can you explain what Zulresso is for people?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's now off the market. But it was a synthetic analog of a placental hormone called allopregnanolone, which is progesterone's active metabolite. So when progesterone breaks down, it produces allopregnanolone as its active metabolite that binds to GABA receptors like a Valium would.
Oh.
So it's our only natural anti-anxiety neurosteroid that we have. And we learned about it mostly from PMDD, because we would see some people who could take something like Zoloft or Prozac, and something that would raise serotonin for 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off in their menstrual cycle if they truly had PMDD. Where normally we'd say, do not take those medications that way, it will never work. But progesterone requires serotonin, like an enzyme, to convert to allopregnanolone, its active metabolite, that then binds to GABA receptors. And so for people that are truly hormone sensitive in their menstrual cycle, taking that 2 weeks on and having that serotonin there to convert it is sometimes just the little bit they need. It's still probably easier to just take it every day because things can get, forgotten. But nonetheless, this is where we learned about it. And then taking that and saying, well, with a placenta and delivering a baby, your hormones are thousands-fold higher. So estrogen, progesterone, all of it, allopregnanolone, is all thousands-fold higher and then drops when that placenta comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And then progesterone is going to be one of the first ones that starts to go back up. So if you're a more hormone-sensitive person, it's not like you make so much more progesterone. It's that you're more sensitive on the receptor side. So there's nothing that can really be done about it. It's not like you can make less or something like this. So as that starts to go up with breastfeeding, there's nothing about having a new baby that's going to help serotonin to be there. And that sounds really mean because, right, we should be all like, oh, my baby.
It's so stressful and anxiety.
I'm so happy with my baby. But, you're having one big, long day for 6 weeks, at least 6 weeks. Yeah. And so the things that raise serotonin, if we were to tell anyone things to try for depression before taking a medication, exercise regularly, eat regularly, sleep regularly.
So we do that postpartum?
If you do, you have some highly paid nannies.
Yeah.
Like, you're not the one taking care of the baby. So all those things that can't be done while progesterone's just going up. And so, like, if you know you have a mom that's kind of hormone sensitive already, then you know that's kind of more of a risk at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So things will work, like Prozac or, putting some serotonin there. But like, 4 to 6 weeks, right? Like when
you need something
one
fast.
day is so long in that period, and who even knows what one day is? Like, what is your day? When did you sleep? When did all this happen? Mm-hmm. So what it is directly intervening in the biochemical pathway is what Zulresso was. So allopregnanolone. And then also, it doesn't really have oral bioavailability. And so there's something to the titration of it too, because it's 30 milligrams per kilogram of weight per hour, then 60, then 90, then 60, then 30, then off. So it's supposed to, the hypothesis was that it was a kinder, gentler placental separation.
Oh, okay.
And then would reset that biochemical pathway.
It's really interesting because I'm curious if part of my postpartum depression and things, I am incredibly hormone sensitive. When I got on, it took me multiple times to find the right birth control because any of them would make me vomit horribly from the hormones. To the point that I was on like the lowest hormone dose possible birth control because otherwise I would have so many side effects.
Yeah, I have this written in your chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I guess for me is that it sounds like it's a way to counteract the effect of giving birth, like, on your body a little bit, if I'm not, at least mentally. And I guess for me is, I didn't have mental illness till just when I gave birth. So, until after, and I'm wondering if it would have helped. I mean, in 2015, they didn't even have it.
It's hard to know, because with mania and
mine wasn't depression.
And with, postpartum psychosis, it's hard to really know, but in my mind, you're in the hospital. It's a really safe drug because it's something we organically make anyway. Mm-hmm. And so if it looks wrong or seems to go wrong, shut it off. And
I know.
Try the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
and it didn't work with everybody in the group. I remember it didn't work. But with you, it seemed to be amazing.
Oh my gosh, it was a miracle. Within 24 hours of starting it, I was back to myself. Like, literally, I hadn't even finished the titration, and I was already... Dr. Clark came in to my hospital room, and I was literally doing, like, a makeup tutorial on YouTube, watching one on YouTube to, make myself feel better.
A different person.
And she had seen me 18 days before as, a complete wreck shell of a person, just sobbing in her office.
That works so quickly. That is amazing.
Yeah, it was wild. The second time I did it, it wasn't as effective immediately, but it also wasn't in nearly as bad of a place mentally. So I think it just took it was a little bit more gradual in terms of feeling better, but I still felt loads better, and
And I think you were able to go completely off meds, so that was pretty.
And then and the way you say counteract the effects of birth, but
I guess it's not that. It's
but I like that you said it, because theoretically it should be preventative, right? In describing the way that it works or hypothesized as to how it works.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't someone like Whitney say, let's just, after she delivers that placenta, start it.
I know we had talked about, thinking about, some type of, trial or something to find another way to, bring it back. That would have been such a cool way to be, use it as, a preventative.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's still my thought, because
it's very expensive too. 3 days in the hospital is preventative. Insurance wants you out day one.
You're already admitted, right? And so if you start it then, and
that's
you're
true.
already going to be there for 24 to 48 hours, you add on all of one day.
That's true.
It's much less impactful in that sense. I think that would be a great other route to have.
And we did have it for 5 years, right? And never had to file any of those, any incident reports, anything.
Yeah.
And so my thought is, with that amount of data, why why could we not, and I don't know, I'm not this smart and I'm not a biochemist, but like, why could we not redose it subcutaneously and throw it in an insulin pump and send people home with it?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be interesting. But yeah,
We did so many things at home during COVID
Yeah.
that there's got to be a way to, because you don't really need the end-tidal CO2 monitor and all that.
I
But
know, it was a miracle being able to shower the second time around doing it, and all the little things that they knew differently the second time around, because it had been, because I was in 2020 was when I got it, and it had been FDA approved in 2019, so still very early on. And then the second time around was 2022, and so there had been some more research and data done by then, so I didn't have to like pump and dump or anything the second time around.
Oh, they let you breastfeed while...
I didn't bring either of them because it was still COVID, and I didn't want anybody in the hospital with me.
Oh, yeah.
But I pumped and I saved everything. The nurses were amazing and saved. I went home with like over 90 ounces of breast milk and stuff.
That's nice.
But yeah, you could breastfeed.
Oh, okay.
Because, I mean, going back to no oral bioavailability, number one, but also the baby was just exposed to thousands fold
of that in you. Yeah.
Of that anyway.
Yeah. So, okay. Would it be similar? I know this is like a hippy dippy thing, but eating your placenta. Because it's like, would that be the I'm not but like the cheaper version?
I would love if I could say yes to that. I would love if I could, but no. A placenta is a dead, necrotic, bacteria covered thing full of blood clots. It doesn't have a bunch of hormones that you're missing in it. It's just dead. And if it were to stay in you, you would also die.
But I think also the combination of group for everybody is so helpful with counteracting,
the support group was very helpful.
So I love you guys' group. Like, you guys are group to me. Like no compliments to me on group. We started it in 2009, back to your original question, and I was still a resident at the time. And so my clinics, we did diabetic and high-risk clinic on the same day. Back then it was all Thursday. And I was like, I know what I could quickly do. A medication management group after diabetic clinic and high-risk clinic, because all the patients that need any meds or anything are in only there. That's it. That's all of them. And so instead of make them come for a bunch of extra follow-ups that they don't need to get a Zoloft refill, because this is back when like people were scared to prescribe anything. And I was like, I'll just do this med management group, and it'll be right after, and then I'll have more consult slots open, and so it'll open up more availability for other people on that Thursday. Never mind that I'm still on call on other services and a resident.
Doing 1,000 other things.
You had lots of free time.
And so Elizabeth, who is the co-founder of group, she was an advice nurse at the time, and a pediatrician had started doing postpartum depression rating scales in his clinic. And he had a grant for this and would get money for this. And if the mom scored above a 10, which I think any of us would score above a 10 on a good day, but whatever, scored above a 10, their whole intervention was called OB advice nursing. And so Elizabeth would get these calls, and she just volunteered out of all the nurses to be the one person to take them.
Yeah.
Because nobody even told the OB department about this study. And she's like, what are we supposed to do? Like, call the doctor that hasn't seen this patient since 6 weeks postpartum, and now they're 6 months, and getting their kids 6-month vaccines, and say, hey, do you want to prescribe some over-the-phone Zoloft to a person
you haven't seen
that you're not seeing? So what Elizabeth did, kindly, was keep this list in her desk drawer. And she would just call every week and talk to people and be like, are you okay? Is everything okay?
Wow.
And that's how group started?
And so when I sent out the email that I was going to do this medication management group, she knew I was, naive, and was like, you don't understand. that this is about to like totally backfire on you, and like it's going to be so full. And I was like, no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be the people I have in clinic. And it's an hour and a half. I was like, so worst case scenario, I get called to the hospital, like if I'm on call, and I'll just run back real quick. It'll be fine. And the buildings are, you know, my office and the hospital. So like they are on the same campus, but that was a stupid thought. And she was like, I will be happy to co-facilitate this with you, but you will take people for a year postpartum is what you will do, and you will take this list in my drawer. And I was like, oh yeah, that seems like a good idea, because we don't really know what happens to them after 6 weeks postpartum.
Yeah.
And I never
Shocking.
knew if my patients were even getting a psychiatrist, right? Like, nothing. So I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Let's do that. So we did that, and very much like put a priority on insurance doesn't matter, this doesn't, because people have that, you know, change of life, and like the baby might go on a different insurance, blah, blah, blah. And we also very much made childcare a priority, because both of us had kids at home, and like we knew like people will need childcare, and we made free a priority, and just ease of referral. And then later realized we had like kind of put the cart before the horse, like when we were like, oh, if we could have a little funding for like, I don't know, some paper. And they're like, well, you clearly don't need it because everybody has mental health coverage. And we were like, wow, this group's awfully full for the fact that people just have so much coverage.
Right.
But I guess the fact remains, like, people, it is required by California law that mental health coverage be there. I think people are just very scared to treat pregnant and postpartum women. But the group itself and the culture that you guys established is what we could have never imagined.
But
like,
one of the things is you were saying people are scared to treat mental illness. When you're pregnant or postpartum breastfeeding, you don't want to treat
there's
either.
that too.
You're like,
It's
no,
so
no.
stigmatized. It's so hard to talk about it and admit that that's going on. And that's why it was so, like, my husband was shocked when I actually said I needed help, because he, for years wouldn't admit that I needed help and anything. And so to come and look at him and say, I want to kill myself, you need to get me help. He was just like instantly like, we're going to the hospital right now. Like, we're going to
That's
it's going to be
wonderful.
okay. Like, we're going to get you taken care of. But going through all of that up to that point, like to get to a point where it's so bad that I actually spoke out, like I had been holding so much inside, even just for those 3 weeks, that like it finally burst. But even that was so hard to talk about and like admit to my husband, who I've been with since I was 14. You know, it was like the biggest like leap of faith of like, okay, he's my person. I trust him immensely. I'm going to tell him, but I know a ton of people that don't and will just hide in shame and not say anything. And so I think it's super important to keep talking about it and normalizing it and making sure that people are treated, because, as you said, postpartum suicide is so common.
In my thing, I wasn't scared of that, but I was scared of, I think I always knew, like, I'd grown up with some mental illness and some sadness, and I was scared of pushing that on my kid. Like, it was this sadness I'd had my whole life and could function. And everyone's like, why the hell are you worried about this on your kid? He's like 4 days old. Why is this in your head? And I'm like, no, he's going to think he's a failure. He's going to think he's unloved. And it's like, he's 4 days. Calm down. And then it was interesting being in group, because I would hear this sort of, and it always cracks me up too that I got committed only because you hear group and you're like, women want to kill themselves, they want to throw their babies out windows, all this stuff, and they are fine. You get to go home. But me, I was just really, really nervous. It wasn't what I was saying, it was how quickly I was saying it. It's like, yeah, you need help.
Yeah. Interesting.
You know, and that was a really weird thing to, like, because I'm going, and it was also, I guess, weird because I had a lot of pregnant friends at the same exact time, and many were suicidal, and they just weren't telling their doctors, but they were. And so I'm like, this is not uncommon. And I'm not. So why are you taking me? I'm good. And I was like, and I'm not saying I didn't need it. I'm just.
Yeah. No, it's so different for everybody in the treatment. And I just think it's so necessary to support. It's hard being in this country, having zero postpartum care and support after the fact, and no national paid family leave or anything like that. Like, you're left so on your own. And I think for me especially, COVID exacerbated it so much more because I had no village. It was just me and my husband, terrified to let anybody in our house because we didn't want to accidentally have our child catch COVID. And so it was incredibly isolating.
And when you think about it for the doctor, it is. You do all this. You see the doctor so many times when you're pregnant, and then, okay, you got the baby, come back in 6 weeks.
Yeah,
and
for
they
30 minutes.
And you're only coming at 6 weeks to find out if you can have vaginal sex. Like, that's like,
or clear for exercise.
Yes, like that's what they're clearing for. Like, that's it. It was weird because I had a nose operation, like a thing, and that was 1 week.
You have a new doctor.
Yes,
in your life.
I would say my pediatrician for both girls was great and talked to me about postpartum depression, checked in on me, and made sure I was doing okay. And I was like, I'm fully versed in postpartum depression. Thank you. I have my own therapist, but I very much appreciate that. Like, they were actually very on it.
They were watching
through Kaiser and UC Davis.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Mine told me to use formula. Ours is like, and I just burst into tears. It's like I have
you were
fallen
not going
apart.
to do that.
I was totally like, this is the biggest failure on earth.
It's hard. There's so much pressure around breastfeeding, and I had a really low supply. That was part of what contributed sure for me, was the anxiety and stress of my body not being able to do what it's supposed to do and feed my baby enough to support her growth and development. I was supplementing from day 3 with formula. I needed, I really did try really dumb stuff in the first time. I signed up for a UC Davis study, which was collect my poop and the baby's poop to do I'm doing this on a brand new child. Oh my gosh.
And because this is me going, but look, I'm saving money. They give us free lactation consultants. So because of this stupid study, I got 2 lactation consultants. No lactation consultant agrees with what the other one does. They give you both new ideas. And you could think you couldn't do both, but that wasn't true. You could. You just had to cut off sleep.
I was going to say, so it all comes at the price of sleep at the end of the day.
And I was like, no, this is so important. And the doctor, like the first when I was really assessed, was like, so how much have you slept? And I'm like, no, but look how many ounces I pumped.
But milk.
100%.
No, like, isn't that...
We had the most insane feeding routine that I had to go through with my first of... I would nurse for 20 minutes aside, hand her off to my husband, and he would bottle feed with pumped milk or formula while I then pumped for another 20 minutes. And then he would have to, I
just had a flashback to our first visit.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then he would give me the baby back so I could get her put down while he went downstairs and cleaned all the pump parts and stored all the milk to prepare for the next one. So neither of us were sleeping because I couldn't then bottle feed her and pump at the same time. And so it was requiring the 2 of us to be consistently awake. And they're feeding every 2 to 3 hours at that point. And when your feeding session takes an hour, you're getting no sleep.
I'm laughing because I was doing the same thing, but my husband is a rational human being and was like, this is stupid. So I was the one washing all the stuff too.
Oh, no, my husband
so I just cut out the sleep point.
Go to sleep.
But you were real good at not sleeping right there.
Yes, I didn't need sleep. I just cut out the sleep. I did really, really well. No, like I'm not saying this. He was very rational. Like he just passed out. He's like, I'm too tired, and he just would pass out.
Oh my gosh.
But there's me. It's like, no, I don't need it. And that's when they said, you're not going home.
That makes sense. I mean, well, yeah, I was like, I'm so exhausted. Like, I was just so wrecked from everything.
And it is super important that these conversations continue and that moms are telling other moms, 2 lactation consultants gave me 2 different bits of advice. And look, everybody's baby's alive. We're all fine.
Definitely.
But it wasn't actually, when I look back, I was like, there was no issue over my kids being alive. It was an issue of me. There was a 50-50 on me, but the kid was fine.
Yeah, luckily for them, we were able to supplement. It was fine. They were great. They were super healthy. There were no issues. I just had to let go of like the internalized shame and failure that I felt for not being able to do the things that everyone says you're supposed to be able to do.
I never let go of it till I had my second and could feed. Like, honestly, if they'd given me, the second medication was Risperidone. Risperidone's side effect is lactation. So, like, when he was 2, I still had the biggest breast on the face of the earth. I look like Pamela Anderson, okay?
Oh, my gosh.
Now, if they had given me that medication the first time, I would not have fought meds.
Right.
It would have been like, oh, can I double this? Can I triple this?
Anything to make it happen. Yeah, I'm trying to be very zen about it this time, and we're just going to do whatever works. And I was much better about it the second time. With my second, I had no feeding issues. I learned better with like latches and things like that, and we supplemented a little bit, and then I still didn't have good supply. I stopped at like 14 weeks and just switched over to formula at that point completely. So I'm just kind of like giving myself this time around like lots of grace to be like, if we can get to 12 weeks, that'd be great. That's the goal, you know.
If you
but
can't,
then we're just gonna do what we can.
And the thing is, like, on all of it, I wish people would really talk about the benefits of damn formula. Like, one, my other kid is actually, he's bigger. He's than the one that's on.
The benefits of sleep.
Yeah,
But that you sleep, and I handled, and he slept on his own. My little one is 4 and still will not get out of my bed. And I weaned him a year ago. He still goes up, Mommy, I need your boobie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Like,
the thing that nobody ever says is that it's up to the child when breastfeeding stops.
He's going to go till like he's 12. I've been chased by this child.
Yeah, I was done with both mine very early on. But they both actually were the ones that were like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, even at like 8 weeks, like my oldest just would not anymore. Would not. And I just was like, cool, so I'm just going to pump then. We're going to switch straight to bottles, and cool. And then I pumped for like 12 more weeks.
The pump is its own beast.
The exclusively pumping is its own exhaustion.
Sure.
But I was just like following her lead. I was like, she just turned into a screaming battle every time I tried to nurse. And so I was like, well, why? Like, this is making both of us miserable. I had just done Zulresso, and I was like, no, I'm not going to risk my sanity and peace that I finally just gained to fight you on this. Like, no.
It's so important that I think moms understand. Actually try to protect your sanity. Yeah. It matters more than that stupid milk.
Yeah, it's the put your oxygen mask on first.
I hated that term when they said put your oxygen mask before you put someone else. I'm like, I am a new mom. I have been avoiding every med. I wouldn't take my asthma medication on my first. So screw you. I am going to be holding my breath forever. Don't tell me that. That is my goal. That is the wrong thing. I am reading all of that mommy crap, like shampoos, the chemicals in my shampoo, I didn't take asthma meds till I come in and doctor's like, are you okay?
So
I'm coughing. I could not breathe. And the doctor was like, if you are not breathing, the kid's not breathing. And I'm like, oh, 100%. Maybe I should do this medication. But it did require a doctor telling me this.
Oh, it's crazy.
So that's why I hate that. Do first. It was like, no, I wasn't doing that.
Yeah. I think the mental model of, I'm trying not to turn in a direction of man bashing, and you both know how easy that is for me to do. The mental model of, you're a new mom, you're pregnant, you're glowing, and you're so happy about this is so culturally ingrained. Mm-hmm. For so long. Really, it's not been very long that if you look at the pictures on the wall at UC Davis, that you'll see a whole lot of female doctors that might, tell somebody something different because maybe they've
actually
been a mom. And of course, you can't even really fault a man, right? Because, they want to think their wife is happy and glowing and just so happy.
I looked at this. Okay, so I've still been getting the reels for Get Pregnant Again. like the face, and I'm going, no, it's not happening. But they give me like baby, like advice for kids. And there's like this it was like this mental health one. And somebody had a comment, and it was, if you can't give up something for 9 months, you don't deserve to be a mom.
Ew.
And I just was like, oh yeah. And I just put on there, yes, you really shouldn't take heart medication. You can just listen to put an app on your phone that says beep, beep, and we're good. Like,
yeah, that's wild.
Like,
and then this also comes behind like reasonable laws of you can't do research on pregnant people, right? Like you can't be like, we're going to let you be sick and we're going to have you take medicine and we're going to just kind of sit here and see if it's sickness or medicine that is going to screw up.
And they can't test it on pregnant women.
The baby.
Yeah.
But what we do know inherently is that there's no chronic illness made better by pregnancy.
Try.
Also, you have 50% more blood volume. Your kidneys are working faster and your liver enzymes are working faster. So any chronic medication, like say maybe even your asthma medication that one would be on is going to get chewed up so much faster because the dose your body's seeing is lower, right? So if you're on like a very low dose of say levothyroxine, Zoloft, you name it, whatever it may be, like you're probably getting a subtherapeutic dose at some point. And so we do a lot of labs for chronic illness, but people with any chronic illness, like mental health notwithstanding, are always like, so I've gone down to the lowest possible level of, and we're like, great, so your blood pressure's real high, and that nothing's getting to your placenta. You need to fix it.
Yeah, we actually just had to up my levothyroxine because of that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's very, very few medications. Well, first of all, those pregnancy categories only speak to the first 10 weeks because they speak to any fetal anomaly that may happen. And this is all from retrospective databases, not from double-blinded, somebody took something, somebody stayed sick studies. And so that's why everything's a category C, because it's just like accidentally.
What does category C mean?
It means we don't know. We don't know if it's bad or good or whatever. And then after a while, when a medication is maybe like 80 years old or something, it could become a category B because there's just a critical mass of data.
That was the hard thing, too, I would listen to a lot of times. Like, I just see a lot, which was, well, it might not cause a problem, but why take a risk? And especially for my first pregnancy, I read everything. And if I didn't read it, I had a good friend who was also pregnant who told me everything. We had babies a week apart. We went to high school together. And it was like, well, this is a risk. Have you thought about, are you washing all of your salad? The only thing you really could eat was iron salad. But it needed to be washed completely and cooked.
Except that, then you get the risk. Like, I feel like, I know, there's so many, like, things you can't do. If you ever read the book, Expecting Better by Emily Osterman, she's amazing. I love her book.
Oh, and she's more
reasonable. So she's a health statistician, and she goes through and reads all the studies and things that were done that they're, the doctors or advice people are giving you based on, don't have caffeine, don't drink alcohol, don't eat sushi, all the, listeria risks, things like that. And she breaks down like what their studies actually saying. And like a lot of times and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that like it's easier just to say don't do it and don't have anything than say like, you can actually have up to this amount, because people don't trust women to just, do it in moderation or do whatever at that point. Or they just say like, it's easier just to say no, don't do it and scare than to like trust the judgment of like taking.
It's like hair dye would be a good example, right? Like it says if you're pregnant you can't dye your hair, and it says it on hair dye boxes, and it's sold on a shelf in a drugstore, right? And there's some idiot on earth that would eat it. I don't know. I don't, and we don't even know that eating it would hurt a baby. It will probably just make you sick, and you'd be sick, and you'd throw up, and that would be that. But you cannot sue cocaine, right? But you can sue hair dye. And so I think for a lot of companies, it's, easier to just say no and say that about pregnancy, because anything goes wrong with a pregnancy, people will look back and
blame.
And also, like, moms are just really good at guilt anyway. And, like, so not all of this is litigious and, like, underhanded and not understanding statistics. Like, you want to find a reason and you want it to be you.
And if you had a miscarriage, like I've watched many friends, they go through every possibility of why it could have happened.
Yeah.
Or a kid that had any issues. It's like, I have to blame. Where it's like, you don't know every time. And it's like, I did something wrong. And it's actually kind of interesting because it's never the man going, my sperm was messed up.
100%. Which I recently
always
was just learning about how, like, the sperm is actually responsible for, like, building the placenta and everything like that. And so that, like, if you have, like preeclampsia and other complications, it's all because of that. I keep thanking my husband. I'm like, good job. I have not at least had those issues.
Learning more things.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. Yeah. And the whole, I really do find this shocking, like the whole, you only see you see the doctor at 6 weeks and then they're done. But they found that, like, your body goes crazy when the baby comes out. Like, at best, it's called baby blues. And then it's like, and you get to determine if
who couldn't get baby blues. Like,
no.
Yeah.
How is that? How would that be possible? Like, in no other situation would you be sleeping that little and eating that irregularly.
Well, and in the U.S., people are going back to work at 6 weeks, and things like that, where you're then expected to be a functional human being outside of then being up all night.
I don't know.
Care.
I don't know how you've been working full time and been, like, pretty much having a baby almost every year.
Hey, I have a 4-year-old and a 3.5-year-old.
But aren't you in a master's program?
Yes, I'm working full time in a master's.
Yeah. Okay, so it's easy. I'm sorry. I thought this was.
It's just a lot of juggling and a very supportive husband. But yeah, it's very hard to not have that support and that you just get the box checked off. Whereas other countries, like in the UK or Scotland, they'll have a midwife or nurse coming by your house for the first year, every couple of weeks, to 6 months, and then every couple of months to check in on you. And just having that kind of support through group, at least, was like kind of the counteraction to, our culture of, like, not getting that type of support. It was like our little village.
I will say this, like, on that, at least with my first, once they found out I was crazy, I did get that. And I ran like crazy because it's like the hospital, being locked up in the mental hospital was so completely terrifying. And I was not suicidal before I went in. I was suicidal when I got out. And then I was more suicidal when the doctor said, this is what we do because you are the kind, like, we're looking at you. You are going to kill your kid. And that's what, and I never thought I was going to. That's what my psychiatrist on the outside said. He said, people with your diagnosis, which was postpartum psychosis, not depression, 10% kill themselves and 1% kill their kids. And I listened to that and went, okay, so I got to go kill myself because I know this place did not fix me. Like, that place, fuck it, and I don't want to go back. And I don't know how to get better where they won't put me back at Heritage Oaks. And then I got back. And then, by the way, I was completely wrong. I went back 4 other times. And the 3rd and 5th time were kind of enjoyable. So it was my perspective. It gets better. But the first time was terrifying.
Yeah. But, yeah. So that's, the other mental model that has been put out into the world is like the only time you would hear about the diagnosis of postpartum, you name mental health illness, fill in the box afterwards. Depression, psychosis, whatever, means you want to kill your baby. And you heard it on the news, the end. And that's what it means. And so we would, at these 6-week visits, we would get people that are like, oh yeah, I'm pretty down, but I don't want to kill my baby, so I know I don't have postpartum depression. And
the two are not linked. That is not.
I'd be like, well, but you're postpartum and you have depression. Like, it's just the timing, really. Like, most people don't want to kill their baby, and those that do are literally hearing auditory hallucinations that are telling them it is the right thing.
That was what saved me, actually, was my therapist was like, hey, when he's like, you shouldn't have. He's like, I'm not telling you you're not going to kill your kid because you're a good person. He's like, I'm not putting my license on the line. Like, you ain't worth that. But he did say, you don't hear these things. You don't. I never believed things that weren't there. Like, that's one of the things, even now they're kind of wondering if it was a psychosis diagnosis, only because it was definitely a manic, but like,
there's no one that's ever become
in.
just a baby
I didn't have
hater.
delusions.
Yeah. Like,
it's not a baby hater. You know, it's these...
It makes it sound that way.
Does it? I guess when I see them in the news, I get so scared, and not like those moms really love their kid, and oh God, I don't know, will they ever get better? There was 2 recent in the news that got me.
The ones I think about, I don't know if you, because I'm much older than you guys, but Andrea Yates.
Yes. That was it.
I'm like, God, it must suck being sane now. Because she really believed she was doing the right thing.
And I actually don't find that a crazy idea if you've read the Bible. Like, if you read the story, if you truly believe, like the story of Isaac, like Moses says, hey, take your kid up and,
Yeah.
And I don't find that a crazy, but no, it's a horrible, and if you survive afterwards, it's the worst thing. And that was why when the doctor said to me, you're going to kill your kid, I said, I have to die. Because I don't want to wake up in a world where he's not alive. Like, that is protect him. And
I never knew that.
Yeah, it was an interesting. I went to the doctor,
but I
almost
got
see committed.
That thought process
like,
easily.
For sure,
and
especially after being told by a doctor who you're supposed to respect and like take their advice and
I
word
was
of what's going to happen.
Being left home alone with Isaac. In between me being in the loony bin, as my mother called it, I was home with the baby, and so it was like, am I gonna, I mean, I was depressed, but I was home and never wanted to hurt him ever. Never had any.
But I'm sure that
I wanted to hurt
was,
myself.
like, playing in the back of your head the whole time of like, oh well, if I hear if I'm some noise outside, like was that there?
Is there that? Am I gonna do it? It was terrifying.
That's horrible.
And it was also, but the biggest thing was that hospital was so bad that I had made the decision I would go before, and I was like, how do I make this plan? I spent a lot of time actually on the suicidal thing. I was later. I had a plan. Well, I wasn't going to tell the doctors because they were going to lock me up. But the thing was, I needed a plan where I needed my husband not to find the baby. Or I needed to do it. I needed childcare, first thing, because I was not doing it around the baby. Then I didn't want to traumatize anyone else by finding my body. So there was like a lot of thought, but I needed it to be found so that my husband isn't accused of killing me. Like, these were the things that went through my head.
Very considerate.
But yeah, it was just I did, and then things got better. Yeah. And actually, yeah, the third time I just sat with a bunch of manic people, and it sounded like a comic book open mic. And it was actually a lot of fun. But yeah, so yeah, and thank you, and so you never did it in person? Mm-hmm. I do. Okay.
Nope, group was only ever online.
Okay,
because still is. I know.
Oh yeah, because you didn't do it while you were pregnant with
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with my second, and I was going, and my older one went to group a couple times. Yeah. He was like, and he played. He was like, "Oh, this is fun."
That's awesome.
But yeah, and yeah, it's So
there's some things about having it on Zoom.
Especially at like 10 a.m. It's like very convenient now to like now and just pop on.
Yeah, now it's online. Yeah.
Yeah,
online.
and
I wanted to see the people in person.
Yeah, well, yeah, I miss like knowing the babies,
For sure.
like, and seeing them play. I wish there was a way to do some kind of hybrid.
But post-COVID, well, I guess everybody's used to it now on Zoom.
Yeah.
And it's...
I'm the only... and one other person are the only... 2 other people at this point now.
Yeah, I know, and UC Davis is not going to allow group visits again.
Yeah.
They're not allowing any group? Like, isn't COVID mostly over? Or what?
Well, so they didn't allow Connected in the first place. But I was a resident, and you can do anything for free when you're a resident.
Oh, I see. Were you paid for Connected group? Like,
No.
okay.
But in my head, I was like, but this is so much more access to care for people. And it's an hour and a half. And in residency, an hour time is just some relative.
Did you ever sleep in residency? You had.
I mean, I must have.
Like I survived.
But yeah, duty hour laws came into play, I think, my last year of residency. So I did go when there weren't duty hour laws. And still really there aren't, you just don't let people know because they didn't produce extra doctors. So the patients aren't going to round on themselves. So yeah. I don't know how it ended up working its way out. But nonetheless, an hour and a half in residency seemed like whatever. And then when I started my job, I don't know what I thought I was going to do at my job. I think I thought I was going to have like a day of birth control clinic, a day of woman exams, and then of course I'd still do high risk clinic and diabetic clinic, and then labor and delivery.
But you've never not worked with pregnant women, have you? Or
Right, yeah, but still I'd be working in women's health. But my clinic filled up so fast all the days of the week to where like we had to just like make some assigned labor and delivery day that just had to be blocked forever in perpetuity because otherwise there would always be patients to fill the slots. And I was like, oh my gosh, as it turns out, they're not just in high risk and diabetic clinic and Elizabeth's desk. And so we have this group, and also by that point, so the chair went through every iteration of how we can keep this and bill for it or something. Like, even like lending me to another department and letting them take the billing and us lose the billing. This doctor is Dr. Crennan, who hired me.
Why don't you work in the psychiatry department? Because you do med management more.
I didn't want to give up delivering babies. Like, that was always.
Oh, you like doing
and
that. And
also, like, I found being the incognito psychiatrist kind of worked better in a way.
How are you an incognito?
Like, in the sense of, like, people are coming for their prenatal care. And maybe sometimes I might get assigned a patient that's just assigned to me for. Well, I mean, chronic maternal illness is.
Anything,
yes. Right? So, but people seem to want to talk to you more when you're not, like, introducing yourself as a psychiatrist, or they're not bringing themselves to you as a psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. I don't lie about it. It's, like, on my...
Yeah. No, I know.
But, I mean, it's pretty Googleable, I think, anyway. So that, but, like, psychiatry was the department that... Crennan was going to let take some billing, and they, at the time, this culture has changed tremendously since then. So I don't want to say it's like that now. But at the time, they said they didn't see a need.
Yeah. I saw that UC Davis, they were having at least a specific women maternal psychiatry department or something that they opened. I never ended up, but yeah, I saw it. It looked cool.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I gotta bounce.
Yeah.
So I have to drive back.
Yes. And it's probably time, is it?
5. Yeah, we can run it for as long as you want, but yeah.
What time is it?
If you guys want to keep going, I just have to.
No, that's good. We can. I'll take it.
Oh, so good to see